It's funny to me that every time that we have like a week away or a week off or a couple weeks off, how much I miss Junction, how much I miss being around y'all. And then it seems like there's chaos coming in always that week back, like what's going on? And you come through the door and it's just like, it's home. You know, you come in like, this is family. It's not just random people that we don't know, random people that we don't care about. That's just not the case. You come in and there's just this sense of like a community and love. And man, it's just awesome. It's like the aroma of Christ. And I'm thankful for that. If that's not your experience coming in here, we're going to talk about that a little bit tonight. We want to encourage you just to, you know, if it's your first night here, you may not feel like you've known everybody for a long time because you haven't known everybody for a long time, but you'll get that way as you come more and more and more and serve alongside of each other. Last week we didn't meet because there were several of us who went down to El Salvador on a mission trip. And what we did is we served a lot. It was really kind of amazing to me to think about all the things that God was doing in and through the group that was down there. So just a couple little things here because I know some of you were praying for us. I know some of you supported us financially. I know some of you did both of those things. And so we want to give an account to you because it was a sacrifice for y'all to not have Junction as the community was, part of the community was removed. And so thank you for that sacrifice. You served in that way as well. So this was our team. This was about 4:30 in the morning. We're looking pretty good. I don't understand why they chose this color shirt, but it was easy to spot everybody because nobody else had that color on. But a great group. We had a total of 24 of us going down. Wonderful, awesome, amazing. We had a debrief today. Brian Fisher, who's a pastor here at Grace Bible Church, he was with our group, and he said, you know, one of the things that just stood out to him is never from the word go to the word in did he hear anybody complain. Never once did he hear anybody whine or moan about having to be there early at the airport or any of the difficulties that we might have encountered. It just never. And that's incredible. So God is doing some cool stuff in us and through us because when we make life about ourselves, life is nothing but a bunch of complaints because the world doesn't operate around me. And so it was really cool to see that. So there we are. We're looking kind of happy. And then as we got going, we did a lot of stuff while we were down there. We painted a whole lot. They had a larger building that they had used for an orphanage that they're now moving into a school. And so we had to get that ready to go. And so we painted and we painted and we painted. They had some openings that they wanted to build, put a metal roof over. So we had to get the supports going. And so Kayla is just like, I don't know how she goes through steel like that. But everybody was using their gifts. You had Abby up there communicating in Spanish, which is much better than mine because I could basically say, hello, my name is Todd, and yes, those are my children. Bye. So, other than that, I just smiled and nodded a lot. Erin using her gifts of photography. The complex, I had no idea what to expect. It was really large. We came in, there was 3 total buildings, but this is where we stayed, and then kind of that dirt down on the other side is a soccer field. Mason and I, we worked some together. He was usually looking like that. And then as we continue, more painting going on. We led Bible studies throughout the week and English classes. I think that's the same patio where a lot of those things went on. Candace and a bunch of women who were there for an English class, I believe. And then as we continue, I got to use some of my theatrical abilities. It was really incredible. As Enoch told everybody about the prodigal son, it was fantastic. And to act that out with my children was really fun. And we built some desks for the upcoming school year and got the first coat of paint on them, but then we ran out of time. Another Bible study or English class there. There's the steel frame that was not there before, and then it was by the time we left. And loved on some children. Shout out to Kelly, like, oh my goodness. She could not be stopped. Even when her body was saying no more, she was like, I must love on the kids. And it was incredible. Like, you have to take it easy today. She's like, okay. And then she's out like running with the kids. It was amazing. She just radiated the love of Christ on so many. And Daniel doing the same thing there was incredible. The kids built some steps to not kill other people when we tried to go up the dirt siding. It was just a great time all around. We built a jungle gym that, thanks to people's financial support, we over-raised. And so it was so cool to talk to the agency and be like, okay, so we have too much money. What would you like us to do with that? Well, we want you to build some desks, and could you do like a jungle gym? And so it was really fun to be able to do those two things. And just to put it in perspective a little bit, these kids have no safe place to go. Gangs are massive there. There's not a safe park for them to go to. They can only come to this compound. That's it. And so when the swing set went up, they just descended like ants coming on it. And we miscalculated because they were going to sink it into the ground, but they said, oh, it'd be close enough. So poor kids, you couldn't even reach the swing. And so we're having to like lift kids up. But it was amazing. They didn't care. They were like, this is a safe place and fun to do. Truly, truly an incredible blessing to be a part of what was going on down there. What else? We had outreach, Enoch, Champ, translator extraordinaire. Man, Abby and Enoch were our Spanish gurus, and I'm surprised, like tonight, he didn't just start in Spanish. Just amazing. We had that first night that we had this community outreach. There was probably about 100 to 120 folks who showed up, feeding them, both with real food, but also spiritual food, and it was amazing. And more tutoring went on, just a ton of stuff that went on. So kind of, it was not even a full week we were down there. We ended up having only 3 work days. So kind of put that in your noggin. We had 3 work days, and we were able to construct. We had plywood and turned it into 24 desks. We painted schoolrooms. We moved kitchen equipment. Nearly killed Brian Fisher and myself. That was troubling. Metal roof was framed. A jungle gym built. VBS went on the entire time. We built some stairs. We did community outreach. We did a neighborhood mixer where people just came. We just played with them. We had a boys' Bible study a couple nights during the week. We had a women's Bible study a couple nights during the week. There was tutoring that went on. English classes, a business class was taught. We were wiring for security cameras and setting an electrical pole. I mean, we were just nonstop go. And again, nobody complained. We were just so excited. And so that's wonderful. That's kind of the brief, like, wow, a lot of things went down there. God is really good. But what I want us to do is I wanted to pick on volunteer told. I know we have 2 people, Kayla and Mason. If I could have you guys come up here real quick. Oh, you guys are like coming on either side like a SWAT team or something. So here, I'll give you guys a microphone. I don't know if it's turned on. I don't think it is. Okay. It's hot, so we're good to go. It's on. I heard it. So just 3 questions is all I have for them. Okay, what's the worst sin you've ever committed? No, okay, that's not. No. So well, actually, I'd like to point this out. I mean, I see you working, but then I see Mason just sipping something. So anyway, there's that. Hey, if I were to back up here, which of these activities were you guys involved in? Kayla, I'll let you go first of answering that one.
Yeah, so I tried to touch as many power tools as possible. So I really helped that first day get the metal roof going. And then the next day I kind of helped with desks and then taught VBS and helped with community too, did worship for that. And then helped with some of the Bible studies. And I don't know, it was kind of a lot of just do whatever and whatever's needed.
Yeah. Mason, how about you? Where did you injure people at?
So all over the place, honestly. But no, I worked with Todd for the first couple of days of really knocking out those desks. But I've told people, they've asked, how was the trip? What did you guys do? And I've been able to do mission trips before with my church or whatever it was. And one of the big takeaways was you could do any and all of this at any point of the day. So you got to really customize how you wanted to spend your time, how you wanted to be the hands and feet of Christ. But to answer your question, I mainly did team Let's Build Desk, and then Enoch and I rocked out on some men's Bible study together. So.
Yeah, and VBS too. You were shaking dominoes down.
That's true. That is true.
That was really cool. So if you were to come back and think about like a highlight for you for the week, I mean, there are a lot of things that went on, but if you were to think about a highlight, what would you say would be A, not the, just a highlight?
It was hard to pick one, but for sure for me, it was just seeing the body of Christ at work. We all went in there, and it wasn't awkward. We knew we were going to go in there and have conversations with kids about Jesus, and that was why we were there. And so it was just such a cool reminder how each one of us is just uniquely gifted, and the Lord just bestows on us talents that we can use in so many of those different ways. And then for us to see everybody being able to work that way, and just such a good reminder of just because we came back, our mission hasn't changed. That's what we're here for. And so that was just a really cool time for me.
That was a nice highlight. Love that. Yeah.
So I guess for me, it would be seeing, because when we first started, they're like, here's your desk or here's your material. And it was from me to you, like a plywood board. That was it. So I was having trouble envisioning it. So throughout the week, seeing it come together step by step and then putting that first paint coat on was pretty awesome. But then one of the highlights for me was to be able to give a sermon, give a testimony to the young men of the neighborhood that were at the compound that used that area as a safe haven. So that was a cool experience to utilize Enoch and his translating skills to really try and reach those kids on a level that I frankly had never done before. So that was a cool highlight for me.
That's really cool. So if you were to think about like how God used this trip to impact you personally, the mission trips, that's just one of the things that we give a lot, but also I think God is at work in us. What would you say is a way that something that God has just really impressed upon you through this trip?
For me, it was really cool being able to go with these families, and I think it just felt really affirming. We got to kind of be that bridge in between the kids. Like, we related to them and had fun, but then also to have conversations with the adults, and just at the end of the week to see how grateful they were for the kids were like, you guys are, great role models, and then their parents to be like, you guys are awesome role models for our kids. And so it was really cool to just be affirmed of like, in our season of singleness, one thing Todd and Aaron said a lot was like, we're just saying yes to God, like little yeses all along the way. And like in this season of singleness, we really have the opportunity to say yes a lot without necessarily thinking of a family or anybody else. And so it was just really cool to be reminded of that this season has a purpose, and it's so much bigger and better than I would have thought.
Awesome. Same thing for you, Mason.
So you want me to top that, or do you just want me to go sit down?
I mean, just like something that God impressed on you. I mean, you can say ditto if you want.
No. Well, so one thing I thought about was we know each other here. I know you guys, you know us, etc. I kind of know what you guys do. But to your point, in the mission field of life, in the mission field of El Salvador, it was, oh, wow, look at Chelsea and Abby and those blessed with teaching. Look at them do VBS. Like, I've never seen them serve that way. Or look at Daniel and you and I doing construction, or this, that, and the other. It was really cool to see the spiritual gifts, in my opinion, that he has given us kind of lived out there. And then a big takeaway for me was that whole operation that we were blessed to be a part of for that week was basically a light in a dark place. They talked about, their street name is literally darkness. Yeah. They live on darkness. And so to have the ability to be on the soccer field and look up during prime time of tutoring, of VBS and things like that, was to say, man, this is not only a light in the darkness, but we're playing a small part in that while we're here. So that was kind of a big takeaway for me, was to see people get out of their comfort zone and serve and use their gifts, but also to say, okay, this validates us coming down here just by looking up at 4 p.m. and seeing it crawling with kids and families that may or may not know the Lord, but that place allows them to maybe have conversations to further that. So that was a takeaway for me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, thank you all for sharing with us briefly. Appreciate that. Can you deliver this to Erin? Here, just pass that back to Erin. She'll come and grab that. And it leads in kind of to what I want to talk about this evening, because we're talking about that we're created to serve. And I think one of the interesting things when mission trips, I don't know who's been on a mission trip, who hasn't, but the reality is every mission trip that I've been on, this has been something people have said. They've gone and like they're ready to go, like, yeah, we're gonna do it. It's gonna be awesome. We're gonna go build it. We're gonna go paint it. We're gonna go whatever it is. We're gonna go do it. Yeah. Those poor people, they don't even know what's happening. And they get there, they work, and they come home and they're like, oh my goodness. Yeah, we did a lot, but I feel like I got a bigger blessing than they did. People are always blown away after a mission trip going, we did some work, but I got more than I actually gave. Trip after trip after trip, this is what goes on inside of people. And as I'm thinking about that, I think it's normal, because for that time when we've said, yes, I'll go, we're clearing our schedule and are ready to serve. And we, as human beings, God created us to serve. It's a key component to our lives and our enjoyment of the life that Christ has given us. And so I want us to talk about that a little bit tonight. And it's a dangerous thing to talk about in some ways, because some of us will sit there and think, okay, well, if I want to experience what God has for me, that means I have to serve. That means how much serving do I need to do? We'll turn it really quick into this very legalistic thing to say, I want to really enjoy the life that Christ has for me, therefore what's my minimum number of hours I have to spend? And we turn it into this very legalistic thing where we're just trying to earn something from God. And that's not how this works. It's just a natural thing, like breathing. This should be a natural thing. And so I want us to look at these three stops. That the first thing is that God, He is a serving God. I mean, the song we just sang about, before we even get into it, the song we just sang, that for forgiveness of sins, right? He's the one. Oh, come to the altar, right? We can't come on our own works, our own merits. We have to come on the blood of Jesus Christ. He served us by doing what we could not, by paying that price to bring us back into a restored relationship with God. Totally serving. So God is a serving God. Therefore, we are to be serving people. Because we're created in the image of God. We're to reflect Him down here. And so if He's a serving God and we're to image Him, we are to be a serving people. And then we'll look a little bit, well, what does that even look like? What does serving look like? So that's where we're going tonight. We're going to kind of go quickly through these things. But the first thing here is, God is a serving God. How do we know this? We could have looked at a lot of different verses, but I want us to stop and just kind of start at a place that's easy for us to get our minds around. Well, this isn't really easy if we really start thinking about it, but let's just go here. Hebrews chapter 1, verse 3. Somebody has that. I don't know. Thank you. Oh, we're not on. We're almost. You're good. Maybe you're... Oh, we turned it off. Here, I'll read this one because there'll be other ones here. And He, Jesus, is the radiance of His, God's glory and the exact representation of His nature. So I say it's easy. It's a great starting point because Jesus, if you want to know what God is like, you have to look at Jesus. He's the only one who has seen and known God the Father. And so if we really want to understand the character of who God is, Jesus Christ is the place that we need to look at. In Hebrews, the author here is telling us He isn't just kind of like Him, He's an exact representation of God's nature. So as Jesus operates, that's why the Gospels are really important for us to know. It's really important for us to read and to understand, what did Jesus do? What were those conversations like? Last night when we were sat there and we hit some of the difficult passages that Jesus had to say, it was worthwhile for us to get into God's Word to understand, what is He saying, why is He saying this, and what does it actually mean, and how does it actually apply to my life? If we want to understand who God is, we have to look at Jesus. It's the greatest gift ever given. So I won't cut you off in the next one, okay? We're right here. Mark chapter 10. So what did Jesus do? He sometimes refers himself to as the Son of Man. So what did He do? It's all you.
For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give His life as a ransom for many.
Could you read it one more time, and I'll probably interrupt you?
Okay. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served.
Wait, what?
He did not come to be served.
So he didn't come down and say, I am God's son, I'm all that in a bag of chips, bow down before me and get me a Coke.
Nope.
He didn't come down and do that, did He?
No.
No, He came down, but what did He do? Not to be served, but what?
But to serve.
But to what?
To serve.
To serve. The King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, He came to image God perfectly. And what do we find Him doing? Serving. Good. And to give His life as a ransom for many. You got one more in you?
Yes.
Okay, good. Here we go. Luke chapter 22, 27. Jesus is speaking.
But I am among you as one who serves.
Again, I'm among you as one who demands that you get me things. No. I am among you as one who serves. We talked about this actually in El Salvador just briefly, when we were getting ready to do communion, thinking about the Last Supper, and Jesus knowing that all things have been handed over to Him, Jesus knowing what was going to happen to Him, the cross was coming, Jesus knowing all of this, that He has run an incredible course. And what do we find him doing? Serving. Washing the disciples' feet. He's not saying, guys, it's going to get really rough here in the next 24 hours for me. It's going to be so hard. I need a breather. I got to get my energy up because my schedule's full. So it's your turn to serve me now. We don't see him doing that. We see Jesus Christ, who is the exact representation of God's nature, at a very full time, a very emotionally intense time, putting it all to the side and serving. We have a God who serves. It's incredible. And he does it out of love. He doesn't do it because he's hoping to get something back from us. It's out of the overflow. He's not trying to earn anything. It's just his nature. It's incredible. So God, he is a serving God. We see Jesus doing that. We could explore this for a long time, but I just wanted to park at a few different verses for that. But we then are to be a serving people. Because he's a serving God, we are to be a serving people. This first verse is not going to shock any of you. Why are we to be a serving people? Why? Because we have a purpose. And you need to know this. There are so many people who have no idea what their purpose is in life. They're wondering, what do I do? And what we're thinking so small. We're thinking like, who should I marry? Who should I date? What job should I take? And those are big things. But your overall purpose in life that supersedes all of that is to be an image bearer of God. That's why we were created. It's not me who says this. In Genesis chapter 1, verse 26 and 27, we'll just look at 27 here, says,
God created mankind in his own image.
in whose image?
In his own image.
His own image. Okay, thank you.
In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them.
Exactly. Thank you so much. I mean, the ruler of all creates this world and creates all these things in it and then creates humans, mankind, and says, rule over it. Rule over it as I rule. Image me. That is your number one and my number one purpose in life. That's what we are designed to do. And it's incredible. So as we learn more about who God is, his nature should be reflected in our nature. And the funny thing is, when we come to know Jesus Christ and we are a new creation in him, he sends his Spirit to dwell in us. And so that's not really us trying to act like something that we're not. We're just beginning to release what we are because we are a new creation. We've been radically transformed. We are to image God. Romans 8:29. Now, Paul is writing here, and I just find this one just really fascinating. If you're like, really, Todd, my job is to image God. Well, Romans 8:29 says this.
For those whom he foreknew, he also predestined to become conformed to the image of his Son, Jesus.
That's right. His Son is Jesus. Who's talking about this? So, for those who foreknew, those who are going to come, be believers, he said, hey, I have predetermined this. If my Spirit comes and abides and dwells in you, he will always work to conform you to look more and more and more and more and more like Jesus. That's our mission. That's our purpose. I think it's incredible. It's really freeing because it gives us a lot of clarity no matter what situation we're in. If we really understand this, it does not matter what situation we're in. Think of the freedom in this. Who should I date? We want to sit there and think about, like, how do I figure this out? Well, we need to step back for a moment and say, well, we just want to image God well. So how do I even approach, before even who should I date, how do I even approach dating in a way that's going to honor and image God well? God never takes advantage of people. Therefore, I know in a dating relationship, I should never take advantage of the other person. I know that because when I do, I'm not imaging God very well at all. I'm not about his glory. I'm about my comfort. You have a tough situation at work. You don't know what you're supposed to do. Do you tell the truth or do you lie about things, maybe lose your job and lose your reputation? Well, my main thing is to image God. There's a lot of freedom there. When we begin to realize I'm here to image God. And yes, it may cost me my job, but I cannot cheat on this. I will not do that. And if I lose my job, I lose my job because that's not my main purpose in life. It is to image God. There's a lot of freedom when you're driving and you're frustrated, you're at your wit's end, and people are cutting you off all over the place, and all you want to do is just run into that car in front of you and let them know like they are the worst driver ever, and you want to just curse them out. But as you get more and more familiar with God's word, you realize like, man, we shouldn't be cursing out men or women who are made in the image of God. James tells us that, again, that people retain God's image. We're to treat them at a higher level. So instead of getting so frustrated and lashing out and let me beat you up, let me road rage, we know that doesn't image God very well at all. We know when there's situations where somebody is being physically harmed and we have the ability to step in and prevent that, or we have a cell phone that we can call 911 and have rescue come in. We know that we're not just supposed to sit back silently and watch a life be harmed. We know we're supposed to do that because God is a God who serves, God is a God who protects. There's so much freedom, and the struggle comes in, it always comes in like this. Something will happen, you're like, well, I know this would image God well, but it might make me look bad. And so now we're torn between two things. Do I image him, or am I more concerned about my reputation? And so the further we get off of our main mission, the harder life becomes. Let's continue here. I was thinking about this. I was thinking about the headset that's on my ear that's kind of flopping around tonight for whatever reason. It's designed for a purpose. It is. It has a purpose. Now, it's interesting because it comes down and has a very small tip to it. I could use this microphone, when you get like a Coke or whatever else, you want to open it up and go down. Sometimes you get your fingernail, it just kind of hurts. And so I could use the end of the expensive microphone to gouge it down in there. I could use it that way, but that's not its intended use. I could also sit there and say, man, I got rocks in my shoes. And I walk, I'm like, I know there's one down there. And, I could try you with my finger, but it might cut me. I don't want to do that. Mason's already done enough of that over our mission trip. So he only cut me once, okay? It was fine. And it was a total accident. It was on me. I was not aware. It's all good. We'll tell you the story later, some other sermon illustration. But I could sit there and say, these rocks need to come out, so let me just use this mic. I could use it that way. But it's designed to amplify voices. And so if the microphone had a personality, if I were to use it for opening a can of Coke, he'd be like, this is not what I made for. This is not working. If I were to use it to pry out rocks, I can do this, but golly, isn't life meant for something so much more? And then if he were to be put on an ear and somebody were to begin to talk and there's amplification, he or she would go, I'm in the groove and this is life. This is what I was designed for. Makes sense. It's a silly illustration, but it wouldn't get excited to be used as a hammer. But it would be very excited to be used exactly how it's designed to amplify voice. So the same is true for you and me. We're created to image something. Are we created to image the world around us, what Hollywood says that we should be going after, what the world around us says, what the political environment says, or are we here to image God? We're here to image God. That's our purpose. And God is a serving God, therefore we should be serving people because that images him very, very well. And when we are imaging God, life all of a sudden is, Come back to the microphone. If we were outside and needed an amplification, it's 120 degrees outside. If the microphone had a personality again, it would be like, ooh, there's some sweat and it's hot and it's uncomfortable, but this is still what I'm designed to do. As we live and we image God, there are going to be times that we're like, this is uncomfortable. I don't know about shoveling that black stuff that's not really dirt. I know it's not dirt and I know it's not mud because it smells funky. And I know it didn't come out of me. But let's scoop it and let's dump it and let's move it to another place. Or we're playing soccer and the ball goes off the field and into the sludge runoff nastiness. And And this happened. It was really funny. So we're playing, and it goes off, and I was like, I'll be the servant. I'll run after it. So ran after it, and it's at an angle. It all comes down, and there's like this catch box, like where it then dumps through the wall, but it's thick. Mason, you know that. You were back there too. Not at this time. I noticed you looked the other. No, you had already done your time. So I'm down. I'm running after it. I hit it before, and then it drops in. I'm like, oh no. So I'm sitting there, and I have this moment. I'm like, is there any possible way for me to reach it without having to actually go into this nasty area? Like, no. I mean, I had to sprawl out on the latrine already, face down to get it. So I have to go in. And then I'm thinking, I've got my master's degree. I'm in charge of a ministry, and there are people here that they should be really good servants. I could call the Mason, I don't know where the ball is. Can you help? Or I should call one of the kids. I didn't kick it there. One of the kids should come do it. It was not pleasant, but it was a wonderful moment, that split second to go like, what do I do? All right. It was not comfortable. It was disgusting to jump down and then grab onto the ball and bring it up. Game on! Who wants a header? So, but the reality is we're designed to serve, and it may be uncomfortable at times. It may not always be things that you love doing, but when we serve, we're imaging God, and we're doing exactly what we're designed to do. And when we're doing exactly what we're designed to do, just like the microphone, there's an underlying sense. It's like, And I really think that word is a 3-letter one that Candace worked on teaching in an English class called joy. It's not based on your happiness, like what's happening. There's this underlying something underneath that just is like, this is what I'm designed for, even when it's hard. It's because we're functioning as we're designed. We're imaging God, and we serve. Does it make sense? Hopefully it makes sense. So here's the thing. Have we been missing our purpose? See, a lot of times when we talk about like, hey, we need to be doing this or we should be doing this, I've noticed this over my lifetime from when I was a small child. If there were groups of people around that said, all right, listen, we're going to go out to this field and we were supposed to pull weeds, but we're just not quite doing a thorough enough job. And it wouldn't matter how many people were there. The ones who were killing it and doing an awesome job, they're like, oh, no, I'm the worst. The ones who were doing great were like, I'm horrible. And the ones who were like, oh, weed pulling, somebody else will get it. Those people missed it. So really, I challenge us, how are we doing in this? Is service, is that part of who we are? Or is that something like somebody else will do? I'll do it later. I'll do it with the family, because then it has really good meaning, because I'm demonstrating to my children how they should act, even though that's not how I act, because look at me now, I'm not serving. Ouch, toes, stepped on, sorry, not. So Josiah, he was a young, good king. At 8 years of age, he became king. The kings before him, he was the last good king of the southern kingdom. And the kingdom, when he took over, was not in a great place. Idols were everywhere. The quality of life was low. Enemies all around. But he wanted to honor God. And you can read this on your own time. It doesn't take very long, but it's really kind of a cool thing. And so it's about a decade into it. Something happens, and he's like, you know what? The Lord's temple, people have been bringing donations. We need to repair this. And so they go, and he charges them go and clean out what's been brought in and pay it to fix the temple up. And so they go in and they start fixing things up, and they're like, wow, we found something. What is this? So somebody reads it and like, oh my goodness. It's Moses' words about how we're supposed to honor God. And they take it to another person and they look at it like, wow, the king needs to see this. And they bring it to Josiah. And as he reads, it hits him. Here's how we're supposed to live. We're not living that way. Oh my goodness, there's something wrong. And he doesn't go, we're good enough. He's like, no. Tears his clothes. He's torn up about this. This can't be. Now that I know this is the areas where we've gone wrong. We need to correct this. And so he calls everybody together and amazing reforms begin to happen. But it took that moment where this is how we're supposed to be living, but we're actually living like this. And when he saw that distance, he didn't just say, nah, I'm better than my dad. He's like, no, I am wrong. Forgive me. And it's pretty cool. They go in the temple, they begin to repair, and they start pulling the idols out of the temple. Incredible things happen underneath him. But it took that moment of realizing, I am wrong. We have not been living how we're supposed to be living. Let's change the path. So my question again is, how are we doing with the serving thing? Is that a mark of your life? And I think this is one interesting thing. As I was thinking about this message for tonight, are we serving the world? Are we serving God? Are we imaging God? Are we imaging the world? When we serve, we image God. But I was thinking about this interesting fact. I looked at a few things. 2016 research, neurobiology from UCLA. They found that serving, they're doing this functioning MRI thing, so they're watching the activity in the brain, but serving, it actually reduced the stress-related activity in your brain, so the places that are firing, as people served, they didn't fire as much. They also noticed that there was a greater reward-related activity in the brain than for those who were serving than those who were receiving. So that helper high on the mission trips, when we go away and we're like, yes! Like, we came down, we were going to do this, but we're coming home and there's just this humble, like, I can't believe we got so much. We're so grateful. We're so thankful because we're serving. There's things that are going on in our brain that we're just now learning that it is better to serve than to receive. And isn't it funny that science is just catching up to what the Bible has been telling us anyway, because we're supposed to image God. So when we image God, we should expect that things in our bodies behave more like they're supposed to. And so it's interesting. So it's not just them. Go over to the Mayo Clinic. They did a study that they saw those who served, there was a greatly reduced risk of depression. People who were suffering from depression, those who served, was really no longer an issue. They also noticed that volunteers with chronic or serious illness, they experienced declines in pain intensity, not because of increased medication, but simply because they began to serve as a pure volunteer. They began, I truly believe, they began to image God a little bit more by serving others, and their pain is reduced a little bit. It didn't fully go away. But it's just very interesting, some of these studies. Another one that came up in the United Healthcare study, they were like, hey, serving improves your overall physical well-being. It raises your self-confidence. And there's a correlation that you're likely to live longer, those who serve and volunteer. Who I think they were pulling one out that said, actually, this is the selfish motivated thing, that women find it a lot more sexy, guys who serve. It was very interesting. They were going through with identical twins and watching, like, when they saw different people doing different things, what fired off in them and what didn't. And it was this idea of service when they saw that in a man. They're like, hello. So not that should be your motivation. Another one, Alcoholics Anonymous, they did a study. They found that those who volunteered to help others, they were twice as likely to stay clean than those who didn't. It's very interesting. Serving has all these Harvard Health study. Long-term serving resulted in lower blood pressure. And this is interesting. All the studies came back. The server, for these benefits to take place, they couldn't say, I want the benefit, so I'm going to go serve because I just want the benefit. Give me the low blood pressure. It didn't work. Their motivation actually mattered, which is incredible. They had to just be like, I just want to help. Here's somebody who I can help. I can step into the situation. Let's do this. And when that was the motivation, and as they served, all these amazing benefits happened. Crazy that lines up with imaging God. We shouldn't be surprised. We should be like, wow, that's kind of a cool thing. So what does serving actually look like? And we'll move quickly here. The first thing is you're always going to have resistance and excuses. If you think like, you know what, man, I want to image God I better, and I know an area where I have not been doing a great job is I've been really selfish. I haven't been really actively serving in any capacity, anywhere, at any time, and God is a God who serves. I'm to image him. let's do it. I want to serve a little bit more. You should expect resistance and a lot of excuses to start happening because we live in a fallen world. The flesh is part of who we are right now. There's a battle that continually wages war. No, don't image God, image you. He's going to shortchange you. If you start giving and giving and giving, you're going to be broke. If you start giving money, you're not going to have enough to eat ever. I mean, we're talking like 25 cents. No, I mean, 25 cents, that's $1 after 4 weeks. You invest that dollar at a 7% rate of return, and when you retire, a millionaire. You're going to give up $1 million. You should expect both externally and internally resistance to this. But here are some of the excuses that I give, and I've heard others give as well. So I'm not just pointing my finger out at you, I'm pointing my finger back at me. I'm just too busy. My schedule is so full, I don't have capacity to serve anywhere. When things slow down, then, my first question is, what are you so busy doing? I mean, Netflix, it's important. I gotta get to the gym. My biceps are important. I'm too tired. Why are you so tired? I've been wearing myself out trying to get everything that I want, everything that the world says I should have. Oh. I don't have any special skills. Listen, believers, we got to know this. The Bible tells us that we have all been given gifting. We have natural giftings. We have spiritual giftings. All of us have giftings. They're not exactly the same. They're really different. I think, Kayla, you mentioned that, just seeing the variety of gifts that were being used down in El Salvador was really fun. It was fun for me. I made it my ambition to not teach at all. I didn't want to do anything that I normally do, and I didn't want Brian to do it either. I wanted us to encourage everybody else to do that, and it was so cool to see people exercise gifts and strengths that we were pretty sure they were there, and then to see them unfold was really cool. So the fact that you don't have any special skills is just not true. That's a lie. We all have abilities and talents and ways that we can serve, which we'll look at here in a moment. Well, I don't know where to serve. Just look around. I mean, literally, look around. Where are you right now? How do the tables get to where the tables are? How do the chairs get to where the chairs are supposed to be? How do they get reset? Where do the lamps go? How do they get there? Magic! How do people arrive and when you walk in, how do they write a name tag for you? How do we get things to drink? How do we get things to eat? I just don't know any place to serve. Look around. And I'm not just talking here. Look around. We'll get to it here in a moment, but look, you've got neighbors, you've got roommates, you've got coworkers, but I don't like them. Bad excuse. Isn't there's some verse like, while we were yet enemies, an active rebellion in God's face, he still died for us. Rarely would somebody die for, a righteous one, but an enemy? So I just don't like them. I can't serve them. I can only serve those I like. Doesn't fly. I probably won't make an impact. Could there be a more prideful statement up there? You're only serving for an impact that you can see and that gets you a lot of glory? That's just beneath me. That impact won't be enough. My time's more valuable than that. Nobody ever did that for me. Why would I go visit somebody who's sick and see if I could bring them something? Because nobody has ever done that for me. Whew. And we would never say these things out loud. But I look at this, and if I'm honest, if I can be, I try to be, I think I've used them all. Because the flesh is active. And at times I really want things to be all about me. I want to have a pity party which is crazy. I would rather have a pity party than to step into the abundant life that Christ has given me. How foolish. So we should expect resistance and excuses to follow if we're like, I want to serve. Well, what does serving actually look like? Here's some ideas. But before we start, Mark chapter 9, verse 41. I don't know who has that. Somebody? Yes, thank you.
For I tell you the truth, whoever gives you a cup of water because you bear Christ's name will never lose his reward.
A cup of water? That's just not a really big impact. It's a cup of water. So you can see that Jesus is not saying, unless you are liberating 1 million refugees, don't even bother, right? He's saying even the small things matter. So here's just a few things. Help set up tables and chairs at Junction. Contact somebody new from Junction and connect with them. That's a way of service. Like, hey, you're new, let's get together. I don't know you, and it's awkward for me, and I'm sure it's awkward for you because you're like, why are you talking to me? People just don't normally do that. Well, it's because I want to image God, and I know that God recklessly pursues you. I know that he has thrown off everything to come after you, and I want to image him, and so I want to take steps towards you. And when I connect with you, I don't want to just tell you stories about how awesome I am or how miserable my life has been. I want to actually invest in you. I want to ask you questions. That's serving another individual. Initiate conversations with people at work. Get to know them. Well, I don't like them. I don't care. God loves them. Can we just be honest? Can we just cut it? You may not like the people there, but God loves them and his son died for them. And if it weren't for the grace of God, if they're living on a road that's the highway to hell, if it were not for the grace of God, that's you. And to hold yourself aloof because you just don't like them, how well does that image God? How well? We need to be people who are serving those around us, even if they don't look the way that we think that they should look, or they don't act the way that we think they should act. Even when we ask them how their weekend is and they begin to tell us all the sinful behavior, the fact that they're willing to answer your question and respond to you, that's incredible. You have no idea how mind-blowing that is and how freeing it is for somebody to ask them a question. But you do, because you love it when people ask you and listen to you. It's a wonderful way we begin to serve others. Pick up trash. I hate this one. Oh my goodness, I hate it. All the time. God uses trash all the time. I'll be walking, I'm like, man, that just looks gross. Somebody should pick that up. All the time. And I'm like, I'm somebody, but my hands are full. I'm carrying this. I'm making all these excuses, but it's in a way that we can serve others and serve God, serve the kingdom. Get to know your neighbor. Do you know your neighbors? Do you know the people who you share walls with if you're in an apartment complex? Do you know people who share their floor as your ceiling? Or your floor is their ceiling? Do you know the people around them? Have you ever thought, I know it's kind of weird, but let me bake them some cookies. Just go over, ding dong, hey, I know this is weird. I see you sometimes, but my name is Todd. I have these cookies. Honestly, I bought them in the little tube because I couldn't mix things together. But they're kind of fresh, but they look more like hockey pucks, but I tried. What was your name again? I have cookies for you. That seems like, that's just so old-fashioned. How would you respond if somebody shows up? Well, some of you might be like, well, would you? Are you trying to slip something? Maybe don't bring them cookies. Maybe just go over and knock on the door. I don't know what it is, but are we looking and knowing the people around us? Or are we just too this is my world. I only do what I want to do. I have my plans. I'm so narrow-minded. I refuse to look at the world around me as God sees them, because God is a God who serves. We are people who are to image him. Therefore, we are to be people who serve. Mow someone's yard. Well, why would I do that? It's their fault. They bought a house. One of the coolest, I just think it's one of the coolest things. For the longest time, Aaron's yard got mowed by somebody else. It's the coolest thing. And it was interesting, nobody ever said this. I'm sure they were relieved when she got married, and then I began to mow the yard, although I was like, you can keep going. No, but it almost felt like there was this, I really liked going over and serving. Yes, it wasn't convenient, but I liked to go over and have that time, and now I need to step back. It's her fault she bought a house, right? Volunteer in children's ministry. The giveaway is coming. Yeah, awesome stuff going on there. Commit to serving on a Connect team. It could be here. You could be one of the hospitality folks. It could be at church. It could be at your own church. Like, how can you get involved? There are countless ways, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. I had about 5 minutes to think about different ways that you and I can serve, and they don't all have to be this religious label. I mean, getting to know your cubicle mate, getting to know your neighbor, just investing intentionally is a way of serving. It's truly, truly incredible. And as we're talking about this, I want to make sure we do get this right. I am not saying if you are not actively serving, you have lost your salvation. That's not what I'm saying. This is not me coming in and saying, this is your warning. If you don't start serving this week, God will turn his back on you, because never will he leave you, never will he forsake you. You are his, and he is never letting go, ever. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that God has given us abundant life. John 10:10 tells us that. He's given us something, not just awesome. And we somehow get to choose how much of that awesomeness we experience. And when I say awesomeness, that doesn't mean a spouse, a nice car, a nice job, a full head of hair. I'm not saying that. The awesomeness is just knowing Jesus. Like when you know him, and you enjoy that relationship, there is nothing that even comes close to that. But many of us are like, I don't know what you're talking about, Todd. And I would challenge you and say, maybe one of the places you want to start to look in your life, how are you serving? Because like my kids, I love them, but I'm not going to give them goodies and all the goodness unless there's some, we don't like the word again, we don't like that obedience word because we want to make it legalistic. But when they're kicking each other and throwing Gracie around and yelling at Aaron, I'm not like, all right, kids, come on, let's go to the movies. No. I still love them, but they're not enjoying the good things that I have planned for them. But when they begin to operate within the realm that we have said, this is what we expect, it's amazing the things that unfold for them. It's amazing the things that happen. The same is true with God. It's not for salvation. We're not talking about working for your salvation. I'm saying that as a Christian, God is working our lives to conform us to his son's image, and his son served, therefore we should too. The studies we mentioned earlier, they asked, one of the questions was like, well, how much? How much to get the benefit? And so their calculations, they varied, but on average it came about 200 hours a year is what it boiled down to for people to begin to see the benefit from serving. That's a lot of time, right? A lot of time. But some said even with just a few hours that they begin to see benefits. So, but average was about 200 hours, but that's really not that many per week. Was that break down to less than 4 a week? And you're already here loving on each other for 2, right? So you're halfway there. God is a serving God, therefore we are to be a serving people because we're to image him. We looked a little bit at what serving looks like. Let's make it real. This week, look to serve in one tangible way this week. Whether you're sitting there going, man, I really need to get to know my coworker, or man, you know what? I'm going to try to bake cookies. I know it's weird. I'm baking cookies, and I'm going to the neighbors, and they're going to look at me weird, and it's going to be awkward, but I'm going to do it. And I'm nervous, and so I'm going to actually have somebody that I know come with me, so I'm not flying solo. I need a wingman to come help me meet my neighbor. That's fine. But think through one tangible thing, or I'm going to help set up chairs. I'm going to help tear down. I'm going to help bring snacks. I don't know what it is. But for all of us to look tangibly. And I'm going to go ahead and give you the challenge, so when you guys are talking about things at your table as well, and the community challenge Smackdown, I would love it if your table would figure out how to serve in some random way this week. You're like, well, we got all these little icons. Like, so what is that? Some of I forgot. Pick up trash. Maybe you're like, you know what? All we're going to do is we're going to go to a park and we're just going to pick up trash. We're not going to announce to the world, hello, everybody, because we love Jesus. I am picking this gum wrapper up. It was trash, but I have now redeemed it, much like Jesus can redeem you if you will simply come. I'm not asking that you go do that. Maybe you just go and you're picking up trash and people begin to ask, what are you doing? What are you doing? Well, I'm cleaning up after you, apparently. You know, whatever it may be, and you may be able to start into some incredible conversations, but you're like, this is just a time for us to go, and maybe you sit there and say, hey, for the next 20 minutes, we're just going to meet, we're going to do this for 20 minutes, and we're going to pick it up, and we can talk as we're doing it, but we want to make sure maybe the first 5 minutes, we just want to pray over the area that we're cleansing. We want to, God, this is your land, this is your place. We want to pray that supernatural things would happen here in incredible ways. How cool would that be? The middle one here is like people are supposedly playing board games. Maybe you want to take your group and you want to go to a retirement home. People who are just lonely and isolated and are just looking for somebody to invest in them. And you're like, no, I don't want to do that because those people are closer to death and that makes me nervous. I don't like that. So, I mean, I just don't know what it is. Maybe you want to mow somebody's yard. Maybe you want to stack chairs. I'm trying to think about, the cupcake. I was trying to think, what is that? Because it kind of looks like the poo emoji a little bit. Which we did a little bit of that in El Salvador. Not the pooing, but the like moving of stuff. Yeah, I think it was more so, like what if you just said, hey, we're going to, as a team, we're going to commit to making snacks. Like let's, as a team, instead of going and getting together for a food or whatever else, how much would we spend on that corporately if we said, instead, let's use that and like, let's blow people's minds away by the snacks that they're going to have at Junction. And these are just ideas, and they're lame ideas. You guys will come up with better ones there, but that's your community challenge smackdown. Let me pray for us, and then we'll have some time in small group conversations. Father, we